Yeah, and I think that becomes the key idea of MVPs is testing what really works, right? Because we only think we know.
Yeah.
So this is really about experimentation. It's about testing um, and learning with real stuff and not just ideas on paper. Um, and testing is interesting because it's often met with fear. We want to test, and what if the test fails? Um, and so we decide we're going to grow our confidence sort of inside the conference room without interacting with customers, without interacting with other stakeholders, and be really confident we designed it, and then unleash on the world when we're done. But the idea of testing early is, yes, we are going to find out. And if we fell on our face, then we fell on our face early and cheap. Um, but I do think there's opportunities now where the willingness to test, as long as we're honest about it, should be increased. And the main reason is that what's working, right, what was working already isn't, right?
Right.
So if you're
Right.
balancing your decision between something that works and testing something that fails, that's a different equation than something that's already failing and testing to possibly fail or possibly be much better.
Yeah. I 100% agree. 100% agree. You're making me think of a few other things as well, because there is, to me, there is, when you're strategizing a project, when you're getting started on a big project, this concept of agile, get things in the hands of the customers is really a popular concept. And then you get to implementation and it becomes less popular because of what you've just said, which is, you want to get that feedback, but we're still all people and we still all have egos and we still all have stakes in the project and we have a budget and we have a schedule, and the actual tactical implementation of getting things to fail early so we can fix them is a lot harder than the theoretical concept. And so it becomes a change initiative, right? We have to really make sure that not just the leadership, but the implementation team, the customers. I mean, I've seen examples where the end user customer um, didn't fully understand that what they were seeing wasn't done. I mean, in this agile concept, trying to get to your MVP, you're never going to roll something out that's ready, that's done, right? That's the antithesis of agile. You want something that works, but that you want to get some feedback on. And so I've seen situations where it just basically begs of a very large organizational change effort so that everybody's aware, expectations are set, because we all know happiness is tied to expectations. And if you can do that, then I think you can get to that place. But it has to be a focus to say we have to prepare everybody for what we're going to go through in terms of this agile development, delivery, feedback, this failure to look bad. That, hey, what we rolled out wasn't what the customers wanted. Well, that's okay. That's why we rolled it out and got their feedback. I think it just takes some effort there.
Yeah, no, I think it does take some effort, but the risk reward ratio has just changed, and I think that's the opportunity in testing and experimentation is let's leverage this moment where the risk reward balance is really in the favor of taking some risks, trying some new things, um, uh, and ultimately we need some wins out of experimenting with some perhaps crazy ideas in order to achieve everything we need to achieve going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's an opportunity. I know there's a lot of hardship being experienced by many folks, and but in terms of organizations and processes and change, I agree with you. It's an opportunity to do things that maybe we had just theorized years ago. Now's the time.
Yeah, an example of that is work from home in its own right.
Yeah,
Many companies would have said, in a short executive conversation, should we allow people to work from home? And they would have said, I believe people won't be as productive. And now
right.
we've been forced into an experiment. And In the last week, I've talked to 2 companies that are not renewing their lease, and they're going to work entirely remotely because they've
Wow.
measured themselves as being more productive. And so that, you know, what we can learn from a few experiments, we never know until we try.
Oh, it's a tough. I mean, that's a different topic, right? Almost for a different conversation. But this concept of how do you measure productivity now? You know, it's moving from how many widgets do I go through, how many forms do I process, how many things do I execute, to am I really productive? Like, what am I getting done in terms? It's not just a numbers game. It's what's my output, and am I being efficient and productive? I think it's a whole different mindset. So not only is it a work from home thing that has been thrust upon us, so we have to work in this environment. I think it's a leadership challenge to say, how do I really reimagine the productivity of my teams now, if I'm not in an environment where they're all in the same office and I can walk around and I can see them and make sure they're all heads down working. Now I can't. Well, now I have to redefine how I measure productivity. So another opportunity. None of these opportunities are easy. They're all big challenges, but we don't really have a choice. And, you know, there have been many jurisdictions where we've helped them go through a strategic planning effort and put forward cost benefit, and they haven't been funded to modernize. And yet we know that in 5 years, they're probably going to have a crisis. Their system's going to fail. The legacy code, they're going to have issues. They're going to get forced by the legislature to make changes to their fees or some business rule, and nobody knows it because they've all retired and there's no documentation and it's all in the code. So we know the cliff's coming, but they still haven't been funded. So I've often theorized that it takes a crisis sometimes to move the ball forward because you don't have a choice. So in those jurisdictions, they're going to wait until that crisis happens and then they'll go forward. And now we've been thrust into this crisis, and that to me, just by its very nature, is going to drive the change that was pending